Greetings. The TP event on blockchain technology in May 2018 was led by Bob Panger. Today, we have him here at Divine to discuss on that topic and provide additional insights. We hope you enjoy this. Bob, thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today. The sessions that you did at TP on blockchain technology were very well received. Thank you very much. As we know, blockchain was invented in 2008. We have come quite a ways from then. Would you tell us how did you come into this and how you got interested in this?
And how I got involved in blockchain and my interest really started more about understanding the cryptocurrencies. It came up a family event a couple of years ago, and in discussions, my brother-in-law and his son were talking about cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin in particular, and they're interested in that and mining. And I started saying, what is this stuff? I mean, why would you have an interest in a virtual, non-existent financial asset that's backed by nothing? And so, it started there in my research into it. And as I started researching and trying to understand Bitcoin and what mining was, because that was the thing, what are you mining, type of thing, you then discovered blockchain and what blockchain is about, and understanding that really Bitcoin is an outcome and a business facility for these currencies to create a virtual currency. But the underlying technology is what I found fascinating. And as an architect, has been an enterprise architect, a solution architect, I'm always looking at how do we leverage technology specifically in making it a strategic asset to help drive business value and growth and opportunity. And as I started looking in the blockchain and some of the incredible innovation that they came up with, the guys that created this technology and the architecture, it was incredible. They had a specific business problem they were to solve, and they solved it. They came up with a way of solving, how do I create a way to create a cashless system using the internet and a public mechanism to validate it, which was incredible. And from there, I think it's now opened new doors of opportunities. People learn how can you take that to a new avenue, a new way of exploration.
Blockchain is very much in its infancy, even now. Many businesses are yet to answer the question, why blockchain? Could you talk to us about the key values that blockchain really brings to the business realm?
When you look at blockchain and some of the values it's bringing and the key things that it can drive and change business, you have to explore from the perspective of, what's different about it that we haven't leveraged today and how it can open up some new avenues. The key thing here is that the technology does a couple things. One, it was developed with security as its foundation to begin with. Typically, when software is developed or new capabilities, security is the last element being brought in. It's brought in later. Let's first find a business driver. Where this one, in encryption, security is there at the beginning. It's about creating trust, something that's where business can take advantage of. How do I leverage this technology that I can create a trustless mechanism that I can now have encoded transactions that I provide an immutable record from a historical standpoint. And it fits in certain areas well. I mean, if you could put it into healthcare and have a full history of somebody's care from the point when they were born all the way through their life, you'd be able to go out there and take a look, and the medical community, if they were able to have exposure to every care that a patient went through, various doctors, they'd be able to provide a lot better care. And this is one of those mechanisms to provide that. If you look in the area of supply chain, if I can track and have a mutable record, and I can track every action and interaction of a good from its point of inception to its point of delivery to another business, that provides a lot of value. And have an immutable record there. Now you could say you can do a lot of that with current technologies, as you can, but we've seen with current technologies a lot of struggle there. If you look at supply chain, especially in very complex supply chain doing multiple vendors, just the records of paperwork and bureaucracies have slowed those down. With blockchain and with some of the innovations with the concept of smart contracts, those are now incorporated right into the blockchain technology. So your paperwork process now becomes incorporated into the blockchain and it's recorded. So if you sign off on something, I have it recorded right there, exactly when, where, who signed off, and make that part of that process.
Thanks, Bob. You talked about the promises of this technology. Could you talk about what are likely to be the threats to this technology and what could be its downfall?
When you look at the downfalls or the risks out there to blockchain, I think there's some things you have to look at. One is that, like anything where technology is hyped, everyone tries to make it solve every problem. It isn't there to solve every problem. It has some really good fits in certain areas I mentioned earlier, like supply chain. But you don't try and force it into certain areas or basically create a problem, you know. I think so. That's one of the weaknesses or an area of risk. The other area gets into the issue of, you know, security, even though it's a secure mechanism, but it gets into the fact that, you know, other organizations, you know, we're so used to having the banks and these central authorities control and manage our assets. When I put that asset out there in the public chain and I have to manage a digital wallet, well, your risk is if someone gets a hold of your digital wallet, they have access to your information. That becomes a big risk, you know, and so, you know, people, you know, just look at security in their passwords. You know, we're asking them to manage a digital wallet, and if you lose it, you lose your key, you've lost access to your information and transactions. So that's another risk. Third one is, like any business and or any technology, there's those who are going to push the innovation envelope. There's also ones who are going to try and block it. The barriers of entry. You know, you have litigation issues they have to challenge. If there's an issue, a problem, a legal issue, and it's something that's executing on the public blockchain, you know, like on Ethereum, who litigates it? How do you solve that problem? You know, what's the control mechanism? So will government start putting the tighter and tighter controls on it? So those are some of the core risks that are out there that expose the technology. It still has to prove itself. I think the biggest opportunities for the technology, I believe, are actually in the private blockchain, which is now you get these banks coming together with consortiums or insurance companies together, consortiums. Now they maintain control basically of their environment, but they find more effective, cost-efficient mechanisms to make it work, and it provide a trust mechanism across the various banks so you can get faster transaction processing, you know, movement of funds. At the same time too, for me as a consumer, I still think there's a central bank or somebody I can go to if there's a problem or if I have to have something fixed, I can go to have it fixed. So I think there's probably a lot of growth opportunity in the private blockchain that's going to mitigate some of those issues, but where the public blockchain, you know, all you need is one major event where you start hearing about people's keys getting stolen, and that you lose that trust, you can lose the consumer. So those are the risks, but there's, like I say, a great opportunity in the private sector, private blockchains, where it's going to eventually spawn up with more businesses opening up the avenues there.
What would you consider the potential for blockchain technology, and what do you think is the future like?
Okay. So one of the key things I think we need to keep an eye on is what's happening in the startup business in the area of blockchain. Because they're the ones who are going to innovate. They're the ones who are looking at the problems and finding new ways of exploring the technology and opening up new avenues of business opportunity. When we go into older businesses like the banking industry, there's going to be more protection of their business and how they employ it. But it's organizations like Providence, you know, and SyncFab, and a lot of these startups who are looking at how do I solve business core problems, and they're going to find new ways, and that's where I see the potential for the technology to grow. Is what some startups start innovating and creating new ways. It's like how the internet evolved, right? It wasn't until, you know, HTML that all of a sudden we started seeing all new ways of doing the internet, and that took a number of years. You know, I mean, you know, from the inception of the internet to when you had, you know, HTML, you're talking maybe 20 years, right? Well, I think when you look at the blockchain, you're talking about it's been around, started initially 2008, 2009 with Bitcoin. So we're still in its infancy. You know, I think you're a number of years away, maybe 3 to 5 years, when that door is going to open up, and as new startups finding new ways of how to leverage the technology to open up new avenues of business opportunity. And that's what I think we have to watch closely.
Bob, we all know that any technology to succeed needs to have qualified professionals, in addition to the interested businesses and investors. What do you think it would take for a professional to get into blockchain technology? Any advice?
Well, I think in preparing for blockchain, I think there's a couple different paths. I mean, one path obviously is a developer, and there is limited resources out there. You You know, we need to see more stuff happening in the collegiate area of providing more education there, and that's starting to come. I mean, but if you look at the developer community, you may be talking anywhere from 10 to 15,000 blockchain developers when you compare that to Java, where you're dealing with about 6 million, right? So you have to, it's still evolving as people learn. You know, from other aspects, from business and architectural aspect, is really understanding the blockchain technology and trying to understand how do I address that relative to the business problems I have facing me. You know, are there business opportunities, but with that right fit, and understanding how it's being employed, and doing basically researching technically of how it works and how you can leverage it relative to business problems. So I think you have to attack it both from a developer, an architectural standpoint, but also from a business education standpoint, because I think there's probably a number of years of still people getting educated because they, you know, it's there, but everyone's still focused is heavily on the cryptocurrencies. There's still education going on there's a whole breadth of capabilities that are way beyond cryptocurrency that you can leverage this for.
Thank you, Bob. Very insightful comments. I do look forward to seeing you again at a TP event, hopefully early next year, when you could talk further on the newer developments on this topic. Look forward to seeing you then, if not earlier. Thank you.
Harold, it was my pleasure. Thank you for having me today. I look forward to the checkpoint. I think you know, checkpoint on seeing where the technology goes in 6 to 12 months is probably key. We'll see how it continues to progress. 2018 looks to be a year where some new capabilities are going to be rolling out, but we'll see how businesses are. You know, we thought that was going to happen in 2017, and so we'll see as the technology evolves, what's that next step, and it'd be my pleasure to bring that information back to you.